Yeah, sure.
If that's cool.
Yep. Oh, there we are. Look. Is it?
Does it say we're live? Does it?
There we are, live. It says we're live. So,
okay.
Let's see how long it takes to.
Well, going live doesn't seem to be the problem, does it?
No, it doesn't. There we are. There we are, live. It says we're live.
Good.
So, let's see how long it takes to. Rookie mistake. I can hear myself. There we are. Turn myself down.
I think at the end of the day, mate. At the end of the day, it's.
Touch something.
Hopefully, I'm going to edit that and just change the description.
On the Wednesday store. Hey, I'll just say.
Well, that's Dave, is it?
Wednesday store is Dave, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Tell him I said g'day.
Typing, so somewhat tricky.
I'm just.
Okay.
Clapton. Hangout. Number 3. Some Clapton chit chat.
Blues Brothers, g'day.
Some Clapton chit chat with Simon and Andrew. I'm trying desperately to get Dave to come on.
To come on, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Dave. He's awake.
Yeah, he comes. He's finished his night shift. He won't mind me telling.
No. I've had this conversation with him as well.
So he's finishing his night shift. So he's probably having a pint at 6 o'clock in the morning.
He doesn't work at Spitalfields Market, does he?
Hey, Dave.
That's what I used to do in London in Spitalfields Market, and the sort of a fruit and veg. They'd work all night, and then at 6 o'clock in the morning they'd go off to the pub, for breakfast and a few pints. I think that's that's quite a dangerous way to go, if you ask me.
Kalua. Oh my gosh.
Oh, look, he's showing off now. That's
So you got any chit chat you wanna chat about before we get into
before we get into the nitty gritty of your new piece of equipment? I don't know. I mean, I haven't done. I've got nothing in particular. I don't know. I've been sort of just running about like a mad person this week, but no change there. Went to a gig last night. My friends, the Blue Aeroplanes, are playing in Bristol.
Oh,
it was really good. Yeah, really cool. Yeah. They only have 3 guitarists.
Only 3.
Only 3.
2 leads and a rhythm.
Well, actually, it's a bit more. It's a bit more like Keith Richards and Ronnie Wood. It's a bit more intertwining. So you're not entirely certain who's playing leads at any particular time, or they might be playing different riffs, the same thing in different places. Yeah, somebody playing a chord, but not the same person all the time.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah. I've tried to do that a few times with Carl, just trying to arpeggiate some chords and try and hang back when he's pushing forward. It's not easy to do.
No, it's not, and you have to get into the swing of it, don't you, to be able to do it. It's
Sonia.
It's it's quite an interesting way of being able to play and stuff. You need to work it out, who's going to be doing what, and it may look a bit anarchic, but actually it's quite worked out and stuff. They're playing at Glastonbury, so they're having a warm-up gig for Glastonbury. Well, I mean, the thing about it, I mean, I'm sure I've said this. I've been to Glastonbury 3 times. I saw, who have I seen? Seen the Foo Fighters. They were Husker Du. Do you remember Husker Du?
Yes, the American punk band.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the American punk band with Bob. What's his name? I saw them there. They were fantastic as well. But yeah, I've been 3 times, but only with them and having backstage passes and backstage parking. So at the end of every night, I've gone home in a
Oh,
flagrant
wow.
display of fair weather festival going. But yeah, they're playing at one of the many stages in Glastonbury, which is Glastonbury a couple of weeks. When is Glastonbury? I can't remember. I'm going to have to find out when Glastonbury is.
Yeah, I know the Stones played there a couple of years ago, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Did you watch it? Obviously, you watched it. You've seen it.
Yeah. Good gig.
Yeah. It was very good. Yeah. Did you? I must say, I don't know. Wednesday the 26th of June to Sunday the 30th. So a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Less than a couple of weeks. Did you? Funny enough, with the Stones, I sometimes it felt to me a bit like, I don't know if this isn't true at all, as though they'd kind of turned Keith Richards' guitar off a bit, because he seemed to be playing things that weren't coming out of the speakers.
Hey, I think you've hit the nail there, because
do you think that's complete nonsense?
No, because I've seen a lot of clips where, for example, he's playing Honky Tonk Woman, and he's not strumming the chord, and clearly it's an open G chord playing.
Yeah. Not it's not Ronnie playing in standard tuning.
No. Clearly, that Ole, that Latin American concert trip that they did a couple of years ago or a year ago.
Yeah.
That's full of, dare I say it, what I suspect to be air guitar.
Do you think they've got tonight? The substitute for Keith Richards will be get a bit going on. I got somebody playing his parts or something. But do you know what I mean? When you watch the film and you've got some idea because you've played the songs and stuff. You've got some idea about what he's supposed to be doing. You're going,
yes.
If he's playing that now, I'm a Dutchman, Or when you play something and there seems to be no sound coming when you play, I mean, some delay or whatever. I started off that's how conspiracy theories start. You see, I started conspiracy theory. Keith is not actually.
No. I have had this conversation with our good friend Carl a couple of times about this, and he kind of agrees. What's Dave saying? Yeah, they're buggers at touching up releases like that. They did it with the Hyde Park release too. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Yes. I'm sure there's some work done on those things, but because they're very out of tune and things, aren't they, at the Hyde Park? But it is interesting that even that gas meeting, which is why I watched it live.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, Dave. Yeah, Dave. That's the thing. I'm hearing reports from people like Simon saying that they're seeing it live. It's not a post-production thing that they're doing. It's actually live, where Keith is behind the beat considerably.
Or yes, or somehow he's not playing when the sound of his guitar is playing or something, and you're going, really? They turned him off. How could you do that? Good Lord. Anyway, so I don't know if that's a conspiracy theory too far.
Well,
I
don't
necessarily surprise me, but
yeah, we're just having a conversation about it. That's out there, and I was a bit skeptical of it, but I've spoken to people like you that have seen them live over the last 5 or 6 years, Simon, and who are guitar players. You have to be a guitar player to notice that. If you're not a guitar player, you'd never pick it up.
No, but it's interesting. I'm not the only person who's noticed it. Other people have noticed it as well.
Yep.
You've noticed it, and you're going,
yep.
Really? That's all. Yeah, I don't know, but so yes, I'm starting a conspiracy theory on whether Keith Richards can actually still play. I'm sure he can. But I don't know. I don't know whether he just, if he's having an off night, a lax night. Because is it that Martin Scorsese film? I can't believe it was that. Must have been something else. But I remember seeing him coming on and playing some absolute clunkers, and he's thinking, really? Not just a bit, but a lot out.
Well, the flip side to that coin, Simon, over the last couple of weeks, there's a guy that I'm a subscriber to on YouTube, a Japanese guy, and he's been posting a lot of live clips of Eric Clapton playing live in Japan and recently in Europe, and he's playing hot still. He's playing hot, man.
Well, I told you that story yesterday, didn't I? Was it somebody went to interview him, and they said, he started off and it was all a bit clunky and a bit kind of, and as soon as he walked up, he said he was just on bloody fire.
Yeah.
And this is, who was it? I can't remember anyway. Doesn't matter. But saying that apparently he needs to, he needs to warm up the old fingers. But once they're warm, there's still some fire there, which is fantastic.
Yeah, he's particularly lucky because he's got Doyle Bramhill III playing with him, playing on guitar with him. Yeah, that young. Well, he's not that young, but you know what I mean. He's he considerably younger than Eric, but I think he does a better job, and I think Eric sounds better when he plays with him rather than Andy Fairweather, who he's played with on and off. Yeah, over the last 10 years.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Andy's a good guitarist. Don't get me wrong, but I just think Clapton plays just a little bit more out of the pocket when he's playing with Doyle because he's a hot guitarist. He's a blues man too, isn't he?
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, he feels a bit more competitive about it, and therefore a bit more the need to step up a bit more than if he doesn't feel that with Andy Fairweather-Low. I don't think Andy Fairweather-Low doesn't strike me as a very competitive man. Whereas I think maybe Doyle Bramhill III is.
Well, I think he's. I think there's definitely that competitive aspect in a friendly kind of way between them. It has to be.
Yeah. Yes, more so than with Andy Fairweather-Low. That's interesting. Yeah. It brings out because he's obviously competitive, isn't he? Clapton, he wants to play. There's somebody pushing him. Maybe that's it. Somebody pushing you makes you play better. If you just relax into it, it's not quite the same. Yeah, bit of an edge.
Clapton's set list hasn't changed for a long time. It's the usual. Somebody's knocking. Key to the Highway, Cocaine. It's the usual songs.
What, Farther On Up the Road, Crossroads?
Yeah. So, but he doesn't sort of go too much out of the pocket because it's all about, I suppose, just playing that familiar stuff that's safe, I suppose, for a lot of people.
Yeah, do some old. I think it's the phrase, isn't it? It's what they shout at concerts. Do some old.
So Simon and I decided we'd chat about Delaney and Bonnie, the Blind Faith Delaney
and Bonnie years. Yeah.
So I'm going to kick that off, Simon, and dovetail that into the Blind Faith that we were talking about the last show. We mentioned Blind Faith and Ginger.
Yeah.
You see, I excuse
we
me. I didn't
haven't had an
realise.
injunction yet.
Yeah, hey Gussie, I didn't realise that Eric years later regretted the way that he left Blind Faith, and he surmised a few things, saying, "I wonder what would have happened had he stayed in Blind Faith," and they did that American tour. Is it worth talking about? Is it worth talking about what that could have happened? What could have happened there, Simon, for a little bit?
A bit of speculation, is there? Yeah. Yes, I think the first thing I think interesting about him is that obviously his trip away from being the sort of the virtuoso frontman and towards being in a band, because if you're in a band with Steve Winwood, that's more seemingly, because obviously Steve Winwood's a fantastic singer, great guitar player, great keyboard player, and then you've got a kind of I don't know, a foil in a different way than if you've got, Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker, or somebody else, obviously in the Yardbirds and in the John Morris Bluesbreakers, he's the man. In Cream, still the man, although obviously Jack Bruce sang and stuff, and they're obviously all three of them virtuoso musicians, but not somebody to kind of push him in the same way as Steve Winwood, who's playing guitar, keyboards, and is a sort of front man in the same way. Does that make some kind of sense? I'd feel like, that this beginning of his move towards that being a band thing, and obviously, Delaney and Bonnie later on is more of that.
Well, he regretted
to that.
He regretted breaking that band up because of what it did to Stevie, because they were friends. And clearly being a friend of Eric means something. But as he said, and he couldn't work. He couldn't work with Ginger. That Hyde Park gig that they did, and he just walked off, and he just he could see. He looked at Ginger, and he could see that he was back on heroin, and he was just thinking, this is.
It's not going to go well, is it? It's not. No, and I think that's right. And seemingly there seems to be a lot of expectation on them very early, didn't there? They had joint managers, Robert Stigwood and Steve Winwood's manager. And it's a lot of excitement. I think Robert Stigwood wanted a sort of hit machine, didn't he? The fast buck, and they wanted to develop, and that didn't seem to go very well. It didn't seem to be. I think the music was okay, but they obviously didn't have enough tracks to play full concerts, did they? They only had so they had to play old Cream material and stuff like that, which I don't think Eric was particularly keen on. I mean, the crowds obviously loved it, but I don't think he particularly was into that too much.
They reckon that Scandinavian tour was pretty good, though. They sounded pretty good. Eric
I think. Yeah. I think yes. I think
they were good.
I think from a sort of sound and quality point of view, I think that's right. I just got the impression that I think they were a bit frustrated. Eric particularly was a bit frustrated by having to play Cream material, which just left.
Yeah.
But to obviously to make an hour and a half kind of thing. If you've only got 6 songs, unless you're the Grateful Dead.
When he went into Delaney and Bonnie. People were going to Delaney and Bonnie concerts, weren't they? Expecting him to
be letting rip.
To play Crossroads,
And it wasn't happening at all. But so, I think if they'd had a chance to settle into it and make another album, get some more songs together, I think it could have been really good. I mean, Steve Winwood is a great musician. And I think that as you say, but there's no getting around somebody on heroin, is there? Sadly, that's going to be a stopping block on. Well, unless you're Eric, but.
I remember you said to me a couple of shows earlier in, you mentioned to me that John Mayall was important for Eric Clapton's development as an artist because Eric John Mayall is a grandfather, is a grandfather type
like a
of figure,
father figure,
a father figure for a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
In a strange kind of way, that thought came into my head when I was doing some research on the Delaney and Bonnie years. That Delaney certainly was a father figure for Eric Clapton for that 12-month period. Just as
certainly another
as,
kind of mentor, wasn't he? Yeah, so,
yeah,
absolutely. You certainly got him, especially with the singing. Apparently, didn't he? He sort of, he said he learned everything he knew about singing from Delaney, which is interesting. Yeah, so I think you're right in terms of them being mentors. Somebody to teach him something. To make him move forward as an artist.
Yeah.
And try out different things.
But why wouldn't he want to join that band? So he's playing on the same gigs with his band, Blind Faith, and he's watching Delaney with a hot rhythm section. He's got Bobby Keys playing horns, Jim Price playing horns. The organ player and the rhythm section that went on to join him and Derek and the Dominoes.
And of course, Bobby Keys and Jim Price went on to play with the Stones, didn't they?
Yeah. So do you think Eric was kind of like, wow, like fanboy, like, shit, these guys are great?
I think it ties in with a lot of things, doesn't it? I mean, I think it ties in with his desire not to be a guitar hero completely all the time. I think, and his kind of, and he sees, somebody could teach him about singing, and he can, and as he said on, lots of occasions, the band album, Music from the Big Pink. Do you know Music from the Big Pink?
Yep.
Yeah, this one. I pulled it out of my record collection just to show off, just so I've got it. But
awesome.
To me, one of the greatest records. Do you know what? I have a funny story. There's a journalist in the UK who's he's never listened to the second side because the first side is so perfect. It can't be as good, so I won't listen to it.
I thought I was the only one.
Oh, don't listen to side one. Oh, keep up, please, would you? But so I think that obviously that Music from the Big Pink is great record, but a much more integrated record. And Robbie Robertson's a fantastic guitar player, but he's not out front, giving it, foot on the monitors and wailing away. And I think that that's as a sort of opposite. I think probably he found very attractive, much more of a band situation, with him not being the star. Do you think? I mean, I think I kind of get the impression then that that kind of weighs heavily on Eric. Being the front man, being the man with the the six-string guitar, the guitar virtuoso, the Clapton is God stuff. It must get a bit wearing after a while, mustn't it? Where'd you go with it?
That's what I like about him, Simon, because he wants to be in a band. He just he
yeah.
He just wants to hang out with some cats and have a good time, obviously. In his biography, he talks about how he was envious of them because they were just playing music in the bus all the time. And that's what he wanted to do. So he was in the back of the bus playing music and drinking whiskey and smoking, and they were just having a great time.
Kicking off, yeah. Although, actually, it's funny, isn't it, that obviously being in the Yardbirds and being John Mayall's Blues Breakers, he definitely, the star of the show, definitely wanted that, didn't he? I mean, that kind of, that Marshall sound with John Mayall is a kind of turn up. I've got a Les Paul, I've got a Marshall. This is a new sound, it's a great sound, right? And and I'm on it. I'm soloing. I'm the star of the show. They obviously join Cream, where you're still, the star of the show. You're the man. Clapton is God. All of that. And at what point does he say, you know what? I'm a bit bored with this now, and actually, I could do with doing something. Doing something a bit more. It's interesting that he goes off Blind Faith, which is more of a band thing. Tours with Delaney and Brownie, which is more of a band thing. He sees them playing on the bars, kind of, drinking and smoking and kind of, just being a band thing. He really likes music from the Big Pink. As a kind of, you can see there's a kind of left turn there, can't you?
Yeah,
in terms of what he suddenly realizes actually would be good fun to do, and I think that pressure of being the lead person all the time, it kind of must tell on you a bit, especially if you think, because where can you go after a certain point? Where can you go? You've played all the things you're going to play, don't you?
Well, yeah. And again, I suppose for us Clapton nuts, we have to have a lot of thanks for that relationship that Eric had with Delaney, because he introduced him to JJ Cale.
Yeah, that's right.
And JJ Cale became an interesting part of Eric Clapton.
All the way through, yes, yeah.
Yep, and his sound, and that whole Fender Stratocaster, Fender amp thing that you touched on with the Big Pink album. But again, that was Delaney saying, just play some music.
Just play some, yeah. You don't need to be out the front, foot on the monitor, giving it all the time. No, and I also think that what you touched on there about seemingly every band he's been in is a slightly different guitar setup, isn't there? The sort of he goes from the Telecaster in the Yardbirds, he goes to the Les Paul in John Mayall's Brewbakers, and then in Cream he's playing Telecaster. Is it the Telecaster or SG? An SG, yeah. With it, and at the end he plays that 335, and then for Delaney Bonnie stuff he sort of seems to be playing, as Gussie's been saying, he had a sort of Telecaster with the Strat neck and things. That's another. We'll get into that, but so I think each kind of new musical direction requires a new guitar kind of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously he's had those guitars. I think it's not, but like Blackie and Brownie didn't come on the scene till sort of 1970, did they? Was it Blackie made it up out of 4 other guitars?
That's correct. Yeah. And
a bit here and a bit there. Yeah.
And I played on Fender Champs. But Simon, before we go any further, I've got to do a shout out to Gussie. If that's okay, because I visited his channel earlier on, and if people haven't had a chance to check out his channel, it's pretty good. He's a guitar nut like us, Simon.
Cool.
Yeah. He's a guitar nut. But there's a question though, Simon, that I want to ask you, and Gussie's elaborated it a little bit on the chat about Big Pink, and we all know how important that album is. And Gussie mentioned that they were Canadians except for one guy.
Yes, Levon Helm.
How many people at the time knew that they were Canadians? Because that album, if you don't know anything about it, if you listen to that, you'd think it would be a Southern soul, that American vibe.
I think so. It's very much about an old America, isn't it? As much as anything else. And not. It's very interesting. That it's written by mainly outsiders, which obviously with a couple of Bob Dylan songs on it and stuff. But I don't know whether that many, because obviously by then the band were quite well known, weren't they? Because they toured with Bob Dylan, in America and stuff, So the sort of the music heads would have known who they were. but I mean, I agree with you. I think they're in that grand tradition of Canadian artists, with Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and those guys.
Do you know what I think, mate?
Go on.
I think you English guys and the Canadian guys have a better idea of what America is and can reflect America back better.
Well, I was just going to say that, that maybe the outsiders, maybe the people who don't come from America, have a kind of better feel and can articulate it more clearly about that kind of American thing more than the Americans do. I mean, you just got, I mean, look at that picture of them on the back, and they look like they could be the
coolest
James gang, couldn't they?
That's
but they
cool.
could be the James gang, couldn't they?
Show it again.
I don't mean. Well, I mean, that could be Jesse James and his mob, couldn't it? I can't see where I've got it. Yeah, I have just about. Is it? A bit closer. Is that in focus?
Danko. What a monster he was, Rick Danko.
Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant players, and Garth Hudson as well, fantastic. Keyboard organ player. But but that could be from 1870, couldn't it? That picture of them could be from 1870. It doesn't need to be from 1970. It could be from 1870. The fact that they're not wearing guns is about the only thing they're not. That it's not a picture of Frank and Jesse James and their gang, kind of thing. Which of course is a kind of evocation of that. But I think you're probably right. Is that in many ways the people, although. The people not from the US kind of have a better way of articulating it than the people from the. I can. Sorry, would you like to hold it up again one more time? It's a fantastic picture. Is that it? Down a bit. There you go. It is a fantastic picture, but it's a kind of fantastic old world picture, not a new world picture.
That last lost form's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as is this picture, of course. This is from their second album, the band. Still, that's completely, that's not the Grateful Dead, is it? By some distance, or the Beatles. It's not the Beat. It's not kind of that. And even the back picture on the back, with them set up, kind of bad.
And it's not the Rolling Stones dressed like a couple of dandies in there too.
It so is not the Rolling Stones dressed like a couple of dandies, and it. I mean, that picture there is a kind of, it's almost a vaudeville thing, isn't it? It's almost a sort of, they're almost a kind of, vaudeville out with a sort of old bar piano and kind of, an upright bass and things. And you're going,
oh, you bastard, you're going to put me on a band buzz now.
Sorry. I love the band, Yeah. But you can see, can't you, that evocation of a different time, or is amazing. To me, they're amazing. Amazing musicians, amazing records. But I have listened to both sides of the wall.
So did Clapton want to be part of that scene that we've just described?
Yes, completely. Yeah. He absolutely wanted that to be part of that scene. He recognised that as being, I think most people do. Music from the Big Pink was a classic when it came out, critically acclaimed record, and it, to be part of, you listen to it, you go, wow, they're all just integrated musicians. It's a bit like that Daniel Bonnie thing, they're all just playing together. Nobody's trying to be flash. Nobody's trying to stand out. Nobody's trying to be, the man at the front, elbowing my way to the front with my loud guitar. It's just it's not true, but they are a bunch of musicians playing together, and the integrated sound is in many ways greater than the sum of their parts. And I think that Eric must have found that very attractive. Can you imagine not having quite the same weight on your shoulders for in virtuoso wise, the expectation you're going to go out and you're going to spend an hour and a half absolutely killing it with your electric guitar. I mean, I think, at some point that becomes, at one point you want it, and then you go past that, don't you? And in Cream, and obviously at the end of Cream, it's like, can we not do this? Can we do something else, please? I also think it does chime with the times as well, a bit. in that I think that, people were looking for something to do something different all the time, weren't they? You know, yeah, even the Stones, everybody, the Beatles, every album they made was different to the last, had, different things. There was no expectation they did the same thing twice. There was always that quest for sort of an artistic release, an artistic progression in their work, and I'm sure that's the case with Eric. I've done the blues thing. I've spent I've done John Miles Blue Gaze to Cream. I've done sort of 4 or 5 years of that, being Mr. Guitar Virtuoso. What's next? I don't want to carry on doing it. And I'm sure there's a case of, every 4 or 5 years you go, maybe I need to do something else.
So
reinvention or whatever it is.
What would have happened to Clapton then had Delaney not forced him into recording that solo album?
I think he would have found a different way of doing it. I think, I still think he would have gone down that more of a band route. Got his strat out. Find a more integrated way. I mean, even if you think about Derek and the Dominoes, in a way, is a more integrated band. It's more of an integrated band than Cream was, because he had Duane Allman, equally good guitar player, or for a fantastic guitar player. I know he played slide guitar and stuff, but you've got somebody else. He's not just the only person who's going to do it. Somebody else is going to do it too. So he can, at some points, it's not him, not only him, some other people. And I think that even Derek I would argue that even Derek and the Dominoes is a more integrated band thing than Cream is.
Yeah,
does that make sense? Maybe not.
Yeah, I ponder that. I ponder that question because Clapton, in his biography, talks about how they were drinking one night, and Delaney grabbed him by the scruff of the collar and held him up against the wall and said to him, "You've been touched by God. You've got a gift, man. Don't waste your gift." And Eric apparently was freaked out. This American was, giving him a kick up the backside.
Yeah, but in a sense, did he mean that in a virtuoso way? Did he mean it in a kind of musicianly way? Do you see what I mean? It was like,
Well, I think
you've been touched by God is one thing, but
as far as his gift, but certainly it was a kick up the backside for Eric to go out there and record that album and sing, because he didn't want to be a singer. He wrote that song "Presence of the Lord" and gave it to Stevie Winwood, and Stevie Winwood said, "You wrote it, you sing it."
Yeah. Yes, his journey to being a vocalist, a proper singer, because he didn't really do that in Cream, did he? Wasn't and obviously, if you've got Steve Winwood in the band, I guess there's an expectation of you're not necessarily going to do some of the singing. I also think there's that kind of, and I noticed in Cream as well, that there's a lot of harmony singing. I mean, he sings a lot with Jack Bruce, doesn't he, in Cream?
Yep.
I noticed, listening back to that's one of the things that struck me about this Cream record. It's like, there's a lot of two parts here. There's a lot of two people singing. It's not just Jack singing on his own. There's a lot of two-part harmonies and playing with that. So obviously Eric's feeling his way into being, a vocalist and understanding.
Yeah, I think, Simon, you're right. And Gussie's saying something similar here, that he was attracted to high caliber players. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
But I think, Simon, Eric Clapton was extremely lucky. He made some extremely lucky calls in his career. And certainly listening to Delaney to record that album, that was the catalyst, I think, of his whole. Can you hear my dog?
Yeah. Yes. Trying to kill something. Somebody's moved. Unless you remember the post, with you not this late in your day. But but yes, I agree. Gussie, good night. Thanks for joining, mate. Take care and sleep well.
Yep.
But I think you're right. But I think that attraction
Gussie.
for high caliber players is about deflecting away from him a bit, don't you think? If I've got if I've got Steve Winnie in the band, not everyone is going to be looking at me all the time. Whereas if I'm in Cream, inevitably it's the the guitar player. You are the man at the centre of attention, aren't you? And whereas.
I agree. And this deflection, though, it's interesting because at what stage, though, Simon, did he realise that he couldn't deflect anymore? That he looked at Delaney, and Delaney had this big band that he was the leader of. So there must have been a point when Eric said, "Shit, I can do that."
I think that's right, and I think actually that's the confidence about your singing. I think actually Delaney pushing him to say, you know what, you can sing, you can do this. And as soon as you have enough self-belief to be a lead singer, then you can make records on your own. So, I think it's of no coincidence that after Delaney and Bonnie, you get, the first solo Eric Clapton records with Eric singing, because Delaney, taught him a lot about singing and I think that is kind of important, really, in his development as a singer. Because I think that only when you're a singer can you be a singer-songwriter. Can you write songs and sing them?
Mm-hmm.
And before that, he's been a guitar player.
No argument.
So I think for me that's the interesting bit is the kind of that thing about so now I'm a singer, now I can make records, and now I can get other people to help me make records, and but actually I'm at the front, but I'm at the front in a slightly different way, in that I'm the singer and guitar player, not just a guitar player.
Yeah.
Does that make some kind of sense? That there's a change in it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I at some stage, there was something that triggered an Eric Clapton where he went from being quite comfortably, a sideman. Which is all part of that development, all part of that history, all part of having fun, of getting out of that toxic environment of being in Cream and the residue of hanging around in blind faith and that detox that you sometimes need. I'm sure we've all been around toxic people sometimes, and you've got to get away.
Yeah, bloody right. Yes. Yeah, completely. And I think that's probably right, really. That but I think it kind of coincides, doesn't it, with just one funny thing. That made me laugh about this. Just that I enjoy these little minutiae. This is the Delaney and Bonnie record that Eric is on. Yeah. Do you know whose feet that are sticking out of the car?
Oh, I wouldn't have a bloody clue, Simon, whose bloody feet they are.
I'll tell you whose feet they are. Bob Dylan's. That's Bob.
Was he wasted? Was he wasted, or was that posed?
I think it's just posed. I think a guy called Barry Finkelstein took it, and he just but that's Bob Dylan with his feet sticking out of the car.
Oh, Bobby boy, eh?
That's yes. Yes. His Bobness. But I think that's lovely. Isn't it? I mean, but that's the kind of that integrated, kind of intertwining nature of that musicians. Then I think the musician thing was quite small in many senses. So Eric, the band, Bob Dylan. It's not. You think these days it would be, it might be a long way apart, but in those days, I don't think they were a long way apart at all.
Yeah.
I think actually they were, that community
I agree with you.
was not that big. And I think that obviously the other. I mean, the Bob Dylan. I think the Bob Dylan thing is also interesting because Bob Dylan having made Highway 61 and Bringing It All Back Home and whatever what's the third one called? The one with Visions of Johanna on it and stuff. Anyway, those three records. The next record he makes is John Wesley Harding, which is your down home oldie worldy country record, really. Just him, guitar, bass, and drums, simplifying it right out, and stuff. And in a sense, I don't know, that's kind of 68. That kind of leads into the bands doing that stuff, and and Eric doing
Bob Dylan.
Well, Nashville Skyline is more of a country record and different. But,
yeah,
but before that, John Wesley Harding records, with that picture of him hanging around with, seemingly, in a sense, a not too dissimilar picture to that. Kind of thing, but not that kind of hippie beads, kind of thing that say a lot of other bands were doing in 1968. Somehow, turning the tide. And I think that the band, and I think that Eric's doing that Delaney Bond thing is in the same. Obviously they knew about it, saw it, and kind of and Hendrix taking all on the Watchtower and things, makes John Wesley Harding. But John Wesley Harding is is an amazing record. But it has he just went off and recorded it in a few days, knocked it off, brought it back, and he played it to Robbie Robertson. Robbie Robertson said, "There's nothing to do, put it out," because he bought them back as almost a kind of demos. To say, what we're going to do with them now. And Robbie Robertson, to his massive credit, said, "We're not going to do anything with them." They're fantastic as they are. And had the apparently had the sort of vision to say, just Bob, just leave it, And I think that's well, and of course he's right, But it takes a bit of something to say, what, I'll leave it as it is, which I think is amazing, really.
I just want to dovetail into what you were saying about Bramlett.
Yeah, there you are. There's the John Wesley Harding. See, that's pretty similar to the band, isn't it? Similar
absolutely.
kind of vibe, similar kind of people dressed up in sort of oldie worthy. Could be from 1870, not 1970. It's just sorry. Carry on. No.
I just want to dovetail into what you were saying earlier about how Delaney was instrumental in developing Eric as a singer. We also have to remember that he was instrumental in developing him as a songwriter, because it's a famous piece where they wrote "Bottle of Red Wine" on the way to the studio, and Eric's sitting there. Where give me a bottle of red wine, and he was floored. He was knocked over that that Delaney just wrote a song about a bottle of red wine.
About anything that was happening. You could take any subject and write a song about it. Yeah. And it didn't need to be serious or deep or anything like that, or you could turn it into something. No, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. But I can see it, completely. That you would be floored by that completely different way of doing things.
Yeah, I don't think we can underestimate Delaney and Bonnie's influence on Eric Clapton's career. He showed him a lot of things, like you said. He pulled him out of himself, showed him how to be a singer, showed him how to be a songwriter. He produced his album. In fact, his production of that first album, and it's available on Spotify and iTunes, is a better remix. You can hear the guitar a little bit more than the officially released. Eric Clapton.
Yeah. But I think
there's some variations in the songs. But if you want to hear the guitar, some of that guitar just a little bit clearer, Bramlett read it's mandatory.
Yes, completely. We say good morning to Kubrick Glover, 1972. How you doing? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, g'day Kubrick Glover. We caught up earlier today on someone else's chat. I think it was Dave R's chat.
Right, yeah. Dave R's guitars.
Yeah. Gosh, his streams are great too.
There's lots of people out there doing really cool stuff, isn't there? Yeah, absolutely.
I just get floored by these guys. But look, I think you're right, Simon. I think you've hit a thread. So that 1968, 69, 70 period in pop music, and you have to say what these guys were doing. That was popular music, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Bob Dylan,
yeah.
The Band, Eric Clapton. What all this great music in 3 or 4 years, Simon.
Yeah, amazingly kind of fertile period with leading up to that sort of 67, 68, 69, 70, leading up to, there's been a lot of arguments for it, for 1971, but, being the year that the LP outstrips the single. And, so many fantastic records were produced in 1971. But that leading up, so people started to view the LP as much more of an artistic thing, an integrated, set of songs, concept albums and all sorts of things. I think the interesting thing about sort of that we've talked to the Bob Dylan, the band, and Delaney Boys, is that to some extent they're a bit of a counterculture against the sort of hippie, psychedelic coloured sort of thing that was going on. If you think about it,
so
this thing with the band, it's quite sort of brown sepia, quite monochrome colour and stuff, and kind of to me kind of at odds with the kind of that hippie kind of psychedelic colour thing, Woodstocky thing that's going on as well.
That's a direct reaction against it.
As a reaction against it in some funny kind of way, yeah, or a different thread, not about a reaction, but a different thread to it. That going away from being, the psychedelia and stuff, and and actually doing something else, kind of thing. I mean, the second album band out was 1969, so Vision for the Big Pink was about 68. So you're still in that big kind of psychedelic era, and yet they are not psychedelic records by some distance.
At the risk of not sounding metaphysical, and we spoke about this on some of the earlier Stones shows that you and I and Carl did. You had some of the hippie music that was coming through was pop and it was single bass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then you get to a period where the album was more important than the single. Is that because the album was saying something, had something to say? The artist, the band, they had something to say on those 8 songs or those 7 or 10 songs?
Yeah, and also, I think lest we forget, I think you're right. I think, there's an artistic endeavour in there, artistic flowering, an artistic development that those people, that making albums. I think, that people like, I would say Bob Dylan is in the forefront of that. If you listen to, his Bringing It All Back Home, which is 64, that is an album. It's a fantastic record of electric on one side and acoustic on the other, but it's an album. It is an artistic statement, and that's way back in 64. And then, and he carries that on to 65, 60, and I think, the Beatles as well. Let's not forget, the Beatles started doing, they go from Hard Day's Night, which is, I would suggest, collection of singles and a collection of songs, written for the, and they go from a singles band, they start moving into being an albums band, with Revolver, Rubber Soul. They start to be albums, that's not single stuff. And single, you reach Sgt. Pepper's, and they release Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane as a single, not on the album.
The Stones with Beggars Banquet.
Yeah, Beggars Banquet, precisely. Start to be an albums band, not a singles band. And I think that some of that is an artistic spring. I'd probably say that the other bit of it is, remember, an album costs more than a single. Therefore, if you sell an album, you get more money back. So I'm sure that the money boys, the managers of those bands, are actually thinking about, oh, look, there's money to be made in albums, more money to be made in albums than there is in singles. If you could sell 1 million albums as opposed to 1 million singles, you're, so I'm sure there's some good commercial endeavour in that as well. But I think it's, in the main, it's driven by an artistic,
So to bring that back to Clapton, so you've got his first solo album, which on all accounts, when it was first released, was considered a flop, and then he goes on and does some work with George, and what went on to be the band for Layla, All Things Must Pass, and then he goes and he does his artistic statement with his early 70s contribution of Layla.
Yeah, Layla, and then 461 Ocean Boulevard, of course. It was a kind of, where his solo career really kicks in. But yeah, I agree. I think that he sees all these other guys doing all these different things, not being bound by, just being a blues player. Cream. All the. So he thinks, he must be sitting there thinking, well, they're not doing it. Why should I? And he's gathering, integrating himself with other musicians. He's been in America a lot and obviously met all these guys. And, you start to do different things, don't you? He meets Duane Allman, and that produces a spark. That produces, those Southern guys, who were touring with Delaney and Bonnie and stuff, that produces an artistic and a creative spark that leads him off into a new direction with Derek and the Dominoes.
Mentioned something in the chat here, Simon, about don't forget the body of work, the sign of the times, the album covers as well, and how that was which you've highlighted with the band front cover, and certainly the back cover of the group photo of setting a mood.
Yes, completely, yeah.
So, the beauty of the albums are the hidden tracks. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's why you got to listen to side 2 of Music from the Big Pink.
just to pick on that, Kubrick Lover 1972. The band's album was recorded in a house called the Big Pink, which is why it's called Music from the Big Pink. That's where they recorded. They also did a lot of recording with Bob Dylan that came out in the Basement tapes as well. Lots of just messing about, basically. If you know the Basement tapes, there's some great stuff on there. But a lot of it is is just going, and it's that thing you were talking about earlier. You go in with a bunch of, and you write, yay heavy bottle and bread. It's kind of, that's just writing a song about things that are there, like a bottle of wine and stuff. Which I think is a similar sort of thing, isn't it? We're just going to write songs, see what comes. Take it in there. I think Pink Floyd's Metal, yeah. I think there's a psychedelic strand that carries on, Kubrick Lover for sure. But I think there's also something. There's also a bit more tangentially, but there's also the kind of Velvet Underground thing, which is very kind of anti-hippie. That kind of nihilistic heroin thing is a kind of that's an antithesis to the sort of psychedelia thing. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah, but Kubrick Lover is right too. Dylan apparently told John Lennon, "You don't write songs. You're just singing love songs. You're not saying anything." Well, that's what he said. You're not saying anything.
Yeah. So we came up with Norwegian Wood and stuff like that. That's that Norwegian Wood is like Bob Dylan. Yes, and I think I don't think you can underestimate the influence of look out. Look, oh lordy, it's Quentin. Morning, Quentin. Quentin.
Shit, it's 3 a.m. in Kentucky.
3 a.m. in
woke
Kentucky. Yeah. Quentin has Quentin time, doesn't he?
Quentin's
not like anybody else's time at all.
Yeah. Look, and I think only another musician could say something like that to another musician and get away with it.
Yeah, no, completely. Yeah. You know, but I think that's. I don't think I'm putting it too strong. That's the power of Bob Dylan. Is that those artists, all those other people were influenced by him. 64, bringing it all back home. If you think what else was going on in 64, I mean, the Beatles, what we're doing, Help in 64, probably.
Yeah.
And kind of, and he's bringing it all back home. And there's gulf there between the two things. And I think because musicians by nature, competitive. I mean, Paul McCartney, they heard Pet Sounds and thought, God, we've got to do something. The Beach Boys' Pet Sounds album. God, we've got to do something here. So they went off and made Sgt. Pepper's. The classic, competitive musician thing. And leaving us to argue about which one is better, kind of thing. But yeah, I agree, John Smith. Yeah, Mr. Tambourine Man. I mean, yes, that's right. Yeah, the classic quote. Yeah, I could write Satisfaction, but you couldn't write Mr. Tambourine Man. Did you say that to Keith Richards?
Yeah. Keith popped him. I think did Keith pop him one or something?
Did he give him a right hander? Did he?
Is that just a myth?
I don't know.
But
yeah,
Keith
I don't know if
didn't like it.
I've not particularly heard of it. I'm sure he didn't know. Well, it's quite a pointy thing to say to somebody, isn't it? Yeah. But I mean, you feel like that with Dylan in that period. That bringing it all back home. If you've seen Bringing It All Back Home, when he goes to see, he keeps going, who is this Donovan guy? Because they read all this thing about Donovan being the new Dylans, and so he goes to see him. Do you remember this? It's fantastic. They go in a room and Donovan, he says something. So Donovan sings "Try and Catch the Wind," which is a great song. But you can see Dylan going, "Oh, right, okay, yes, fine, I've got this." If he's the new Dylan, yeah, then I'm safe, and it kind of, there is that funny bit in that film where you could see him kind of relaxing and kind of going, yeah, all right.
Have you seen the clip of when Dylan and John Lennon are in the back of a taxi, and it was the night after they'd been to a party, and they're driving around in the back of the taxi, and they had to stop because Bob Dylan has a chuck.
Yes. It's lovely stuff, isn't it? And there's
and John Lennon being the cool Englishman sitting there with his dark sunglasses, just smirking.
Well, I case in point about the it's all competitive, there's all a competitive edge to he's thrown up out the back of the car. Yes, that's fine. Yeah, fantastically, yeah. But for that kind of competitive thing, I think everybody's looking at everyone else, and what are they doing? And but also taking from it as well, And in a good way.
Yeah, nicking from each other in a good sense.
Yeah.
Inspiring each other.
So I think going back to our original point, which is I think that there's, as ever, there's several strands going on, not just one. Psychedelia being one, and quite a big one, but also this kind of with the band and Dylan doing and and Eric starting to do a bit more down-homey recording stuff in a more sort of down-homey way, much more integrated into a band kind of thing, much less of that virtuoso thing. That
I just want to ask John Smith something, Simon. Can I just interrupt you for there?
Hey, John, how you doing?
Did Bob Dylan meet Brian Jones? Do you know Simon?
So. I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know. I would assume. I think they did meet. I have some inkling in my head that they did meet.
Okay. All right, we'll see what John Smith has to say, because he'll know.
Because Dylan was here in '64, was here in '65. You know, he was touring.
Oh, okay, absolutely. Okay, so they did. They hung out.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure they did. Because, as I said, I don't think the music scene was that big. You know what I mean? It's kind of, we have an impression of it now because you know, looking back. But I don't think that then. I don't think that there weren't billions of groups. You know, and I think that if you turned up in London, well, that and you turned up and you were Bob Dylan, you were playing in London, McCartney, Lennon, Clapton, they'd all be turning up to see you, wouldn't they? They would absolutely would all be turning up to see you, and kind of because you want to go and see what this man's doing and kind of check it out. And I don't, as I say, and I think they would have met at clubs and things like that, because there weren't that many of them, hanging out. And actually, that's the world. It's not that world of the, the budding rock star is quite a small world. So they absolutely would have met and and done stuff, Dylan and the Beatles and things, and all of that. And I'm sure the Beatles and the Stones, Dylan and the Stones met. It's a bit like Jimi Hendrix. He turns up, out of the blue, goes and sees, goes and what did he ask? He asked to jam with
Cream.
Clapton, didn't he? With Cream, in a club somewhere or whatever, and he's like blown him away, and all of a sudden, everybody's going, oh, you got to go and see Jimmy, this bloke Jimi Hendrix, God, he's fantastic, and. So, within a few weeks, all the people who've, Townsend, Clapton, Page, Beck, they've all been to see Jimi Hendrix. Because
apparently he said to Chaz, I'll go if I can hang out with Clapton.
Yes. See, feelings mutual, but, and Eric being a bit blown away by it, I think, is a,
wow.
It's kind of thing. But, yeah.
Wow.
But you see my point about it not being a really big world.
Yeah. Wow.
Big. So anyway, yes, it's worth thinking about that, isn't it? That kind of, because the music world is so big now and so kind of crazy, with all this, there's all genres, subgenres, genres that you don't really hear anything about, but they're huge in their own areas, And you think, I don't know any of these people. Who are these people? What they do? Because, it's all become completely dissipated, into loads of different genres. Whereas then it just wasn't.
Okay, so I've just got something from John Smith. So the night with Bob Dylan and friends in New York City, 65. So
yeah, see.
Can you see that, Simon?
I can. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. Bob in his cool shades and his
Bob,
spotted.
Brian Jones, and it looks like Mick. Is that Mick?
I can't tell you that. Is it? Doesn't look like Mick. It's not Mick Jagger.
No, it's not Mick.
It's more like Jeff Beck, but I'm sure that's not true.
But okay, so yeah, well that's fascinating. And look at Bob. He's cool there too, isn't he? That's
well, I mean that look from the '65 with the shades and the herringbone tight trousers and the Chelsea boots and the the great mop of curly hair. I mean, man, that's the epitome of cool, isn't it? Don't you think? That's like I'm on it. And amazing kind of thing. Yeah, I love that look. I mean, it's just a fantastically cool kind of hip look. In the days when it's fine to be cool and hip.
Yeah. Well, I'm mindful of the time, Simon, that you've got.
No, I've got to go and feed my children for school.
Yeah. Always a pleasure, buddy, to hang out with you.
Fantastic.
I look forward to next week's show. So
and hopefully we can get.
Goodbye to...
I will.
Sorry.
Who we got? We've got. I was going to say we hope we get Dave on at some point. That would be really cool.
Yeah, and John Smith back on.
Yeah. Yes, John Smith, what are you doing? If you're commenting, you've got time to come on.
That's bloody right, you lurker.
Yeah, that's what I say. find some bloke from over the pond. But, so Kubrick Lover 1972. Thanks for joining. Fantastic to join in the chat. John Smith, where are you? Sonia, Quentin.
Yeah.
And who else we got? And go back. We got obviously Dave back at the beginning. I don't know if he's gone to bed. Gussie Wells, of course. Yeah. So thanks for joining, guys. It's been really good fun. I've now got to go and feed my children some breakfast.
Yeah. No, I always appreciate it, Simon, especially to share and just get some things straight that I didn't know, and to elaborate a couple of the theories that we've got, because that's what it's about.
And Sean Zimmerman, hello, Sean, lurking.
I was listening.
Well, how you doing? Hope you're good. Sean was listening. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah,
hey, Sean.
That's fantastic. Cool.
Awesome, Sean. Always good to catch up with you in other chats too.
Yeah, fantastic.
Awesome. So right. I look forward to next week.
See you next week, and we can talk about your new piece of kit, possibly.
Yeah.
Cool. We're good. I'm looking forward to that. All right. Take care.
Cheers, brother.
Bye all.